Hey guys, welcome to Yo Poker. Today we're actually going to chat with one of our people that have actually helped me start Yo Poker, Nick Kealy. We're actually going to just talk about poker, just have a general chit chat about it and what his experiences are and how he sees the game. So welcome Nick, welcome to the channel.
How are you, Ollie?
Very good, thank you. So tell me a little bit about your poker journey, mate. Like, how'd you start?
Like most young blokes at a footy club.
Yep.
Back before, a long time ago, before it was publicised on TV and the internet and everything like that.
Yep. So how long ago was that? How old were you? 18, 19, 20?
Yeah, it'd been 20 odd.
Yeah.
And I'm nearly 50 now, so that's
Yeah.
where it started. Back then it used to be called Chinese or Manila, and you
Yeah.
had to use the two cards that you were dealt. But
Okay.
every Thursday night,
Yeah.
after training, there'd be 6 or 7 of us around the table, it'd be 20 cents a card, and
Oh, wow.
and you keep
Okay.
going like that. And
Yeah.
that was where it started. And then my first full-time that sort of sat down and played proper live poker,
Yeah.
that was in Werribee when I was still living in Melbourne.
Okay.
That had been 21, 22 years ago now.
Yeah.
That was my first experience at doing it. Took
Yeah.
quite a while to get used to being able to, from the old Chinese and Manila, having to use the two cards,
Yeah.
and getting used to, I can use just one card for it.
Yeah,
I lost a little bit learning that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that was a quick way of learning it. And from there, it's just love of the game and
Yeah.
me and out.
So did you get onto at the pub poker because of Chris Moneymaker, or was it just because it was there?
Word of a mate.
Okay.
He said, he goes,
Okay.
why don't you try and play poker, at a club? I said,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I didn't even really know
Yeah.
it was rolling at that
Okay.
stage.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went down on a Monday night at the Italian club rooms, and
Yeah.
the rest is history.
Wow, that's interesting because a lot of people got into it because of Chris Moneymaker winning or even Joe Hasham winning. So I know myself, I personally got in because Joe Hasham basically won. I'm a bit younger than you though, so you would have been playing well and truly before I was even 18. But I started at 18, and it was basically because of Joe Hasham. I think Joe Hasham ended up winning 2005, 2006, somewhere around there.
Something like that.
And that's so that's when I found the boom. How did you find it down in Melbourne? Did you enjoy it, or like obviously you play up here now in the country, but
I loved it. It was Monday nights. We generally had about 120 to 130
wow.
players
Yep.
in there, but because you played the same thing all the time, you had nothing really to compare it to, and it's not until you've played it for a while that you actually start thinking outside that circle of how you play it. There weren't the amount of deep stack tournaments and satellites and build to bigger things back then as what they are now. This is something that's definitely grown, obviously on the back of Hasham.
Yeah.
It's grown. I mean, the strength of the game today, whilst you don't see a lot of it on mainstream media, you know that when you go to a tournament, you see heaps and heaps of players that you've seen. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, it's getting played at a pub pretty much everywhere around Victoria, Australia. Weekends it's on, deep stacks, build satellites.
Yeah.
It's everywhere now.
And I think you're seeing a lot more different age ranges than what you used to see. When I sort of started it was very much a young blokes sort of game, and you're starting to see a lot more females now.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. Yeah, it is from 18, and the impressive thing too is a lot of the young guys now that you see, there's guys that are 19, 20, 21. They're not immature with a poker brain. They're actually quite smart in regards to it. So they have played a lot of poker. They've obviously a lot more tools are available to study it in regards to strategies, what strategy suits you, or what you think suits your style best.
Yeah.
But then you also see plenty of other people that are on the higher age group get in there and they're just as good as well. It's not a physical game, it's a mind game.
Oh well, that's a good sort of bypass for what I was going to ask you. So who do you sort of style your game on? Do you you've obviously evolved your game obviously from when you first started. We all thought we knew how to play, and none of us knew anything really now that so but do you have anybody that you sort of style it on, or?
Oh, to start with, you probably style your game on your mistakes. It's not until you walk out of the tournament you go, that was just so dumb. They're just the basic things that you get out of your game. And then just over repetitive and time, and the best thing you can do is actually go and play, if you can afford it, the more expensive tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Because you're starting to play poker properly how it should. I mean, at the top of the game, Negrano, love watching all the clips of him and how he plays and just how relaxed he is
Yep.
in certain situations. He never gets overawed. But even at a grassroots level, there's players here in Victoria, players recently that we come across up in Queensland when we're up at the Millions.
Yeah.
Even in South Australia when I've been over there to the Mount Gambier event. That's a shout out to you guys over there. It's a terrific event.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of good players attend that have been at a high level, and there's plenty of good players locally that have walked a similar path to what I have. So they've come against similar players, they've come against similar tournaments.
Yeah.
So you can sort of, you've got to be able to identify what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and try and take bits and pieces of that and apply it to your game.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think one thing that I've probably noticed in the last probably 6 months, which we've already discussed outside of this interview, is that, you know, you need to keep taking your game to that next level. So you need to make sure, a lot of you will only have the pub poker games in your area, but sometimes you do need to travel and get to those more experienced games so that you do get to actually learn from
You'll probably learn 5 times as much.
Yeah, I agree with that.
At those bigger events than what you'll learn in 6 or 12 months at your local events, because 12-minute blinds, you get one bad beat from somebody who was low stacked. Somebody who's called for value. All of a sudden, the blinds go up. You're in trouble. You're down to 5 big blinds, 6 big blinds. You go card dead. All of a sudden, you'll tilt. You panic. You're out of there. You don't have a recovery mode.
And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't realise is that, you know, by playing these bigger events, you get to learn how to play with 30-minute, 40-minute blinds. And sometimes these buy-ins aren't much more than what your actual local events are going to be anyway. Like we run games ourselves that are only 125. I just went over to a South Australian series in Harndorf. Shout out to the FCP guys. And it was only $200 event. So like you do get those sort of things. And then you're just going to actually be able to play better poker. And I think that's where a lot of players need to actually get to these different events. But also, I was going to ask you, have you had any big wins? Have you had any, like, what's your biggest win so far? Or do you even remember your biggest win?
Most memorable hand.
Yeah, most memorable hand,
quad aces against quad kings.
Oh, wow.
And the bloke bet into me. That doesn't happen very often.
No.
It's safe to say that he lost all his chips to me. That was pretty huge.
Yeah.
Other than that, sometimes if you want to judge a game, sometimes it can't be just on what you win because you're going to have luck. You've got to look at your longevity. Sometimes take a 3-month or a 4-month window and see how you're going through that. I mean, for me, from especially this year in the first 4 or 5 months, I did quite well at quite a few tournaments. So my game was working for me, and you also need to judge it by that, so that when you have those periods where your game isn't working for you, you don't have too much of a knee-jerk reaction. You may have to change a few things, but you know, it's the old story. Sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you're the nail.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've been trying to tell people is that in poker you're actually going to have these dead periods where you just can't get a hand. You're going to go on these periods where you'll play for 6 months, you can't win again. like we've both done that. You know, like
we've all been there.
Over the last 2 years, we've both had those periods. So, and sometimes it's not how you're playing your game. You can tighten up your game a little bit. But you're just going to get some. Sometimes your aces just get cracked all the time.
And sometimes it's just your turn to die in a tournament. But to go back to the deep stack and the bigger events, just to touch on that, it gives you opportunity that you may have played a hand poorly. And sometimes it's not so much poorly in regards to you're too slow or not aggressive enough. Sometimes you can be over aggressive.
Definitely.
So it goes both ways, but you've got to be able to self-assess your game. And if you played a hand badly, you've got to put your hand up in your own mind. You've got to put your hand up and geez, go, I played that bad. Because if you don't admit to your mistakes, they're gonna keep occurring.
That's one thing that I have been saying to my followers is that you got to keep self-assessing yourself. Like you can't think you're the best poker player in the world.
No, you always got. There's always room and ways to improve. When we went to Queensland, the first thing I noticed there, like one of the events I was playing, because we played heaps of events, but there was one event where I was outside. I done pretty good there. Moved inside, and I thought, whole new area, different table, dealer dealt, unlike the outside tables, until we got moved in. And I thought, I'm just going to sit here for 20 minutes. And unless I get a monster, I'm just going to see what the ambience is of the table and how they bet. And there was one consistency from the first tournament to the last tournament, was the raises.
Yep.
If somebody raised 2.5, 3.5 times the blind level, the only people that called were the ones that should have called.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Unlike the quick events here around these areas that we see so many pubs and clubs run for 12 minutes, where people will just call because they've got an add-on or they've got another car, but up there you had one stack, that was it.
Yeah.
Your respect level that you apply to that is up to you.
Yeah.
And so when you make a move or you bet certain ways against certain people, you actually get a true indication in regards to how your game's going. Are you scaring everybody else off?
Yeah.
Are you letting too many in?
Yeah.
You want to maximise. It's that risk, reward, and try and maximise your chips. And sometimes you can maximise your chips. Sometimes you've got to maximise your risk. It's just each hand can be different.
Yeah, and I suppose that with the bigger binds as well, people are going more into their poker bankroll, so that therefore they're not gonna throw it away as much. So they're not gonna call when you're raising say 3 times the blind. They're not gonna call a 2-7.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the best thing when it comes to reflecting your game is that if you can play those bigger events, like you can get a read of exactly where you're at. And even if you have a period of time which your card did, which happened to me in Gold Coast, you can still see how your game's stacking up and going, well, what would you do in certain people's positions as well?
I learned more, in the last 2 years, I learned more about my game up at Gold Coast.
Yeah.
From playing others that I didn't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Than you do whether you be playing a Friday night game with your mates or your local $20, $25 buy-in. And there's too many distractions. We've played each other before. It's just a matter of I'm sitting next to him this week or whatever.
Yeah.
But you go up there and you got to learn those people. You got to understand their betting strategies, where they are as somebody really strong. And once they start rolling cards over, you can start ranging them, and you can remember how they bet last time in certain positions. But you don't have the distractions. So you've got the focus.
Definitely.
So and this is just my clumsy opinion for anyone, if they were starting off, somebody said, Nick or Pete, how do we start off? First thing I do is you got to learn cards.
Yeah,
you got to learn card strength. Download an app. It's free to play. It doesn't cost you money. You can do it at home, but you need to learn your cards.
Yeah, definitely.
From there, then you need to step it up and start playing live poker because it is different. Everybody gets nervous. People will be sitting there doing card shuffles and chip shuffles, and others can't even shuffle the cards. And you just need to get comfortable, and that's the first opportunity where you can learn that craft. If you're playing with your mates too much, it just becomes you don't improve your game because it's just if you want to play socially, that's good and have a bit of fun. But if you actually want to test you and how far you can go with a poker skill, you've got to go and play against people that you don't know. Get rid of those distractions, and that's where you can start learning off other people because you will see the same people from time to time always run deep in tournaments. So if you're not paying attention to how they do certain things, or how to avoid them, right? That's really how you progress up.
And I think with certain people as well, certain people play different games well. So for example, if you're more of an aggressive player, those 12-minute blind games are probably going to suit you a little bit more than if you're playing small ball poker that Daniel Negreanu sort of reps and says that you try and keep the pot small until you've got a massive hand. So I suppose that's where you've got to work out your game. And the perfect games to do that in is these $12, $15 events. 12-minute blind sort of thing. At your APL, they call that sort of the level 1 tier of poker because that's where you can learn all these things. And you'll find most players are pretty friendly at these games. Like it's more of a social game.
Oh yeah. That's the great thing about poker. Is that the game itself, the strategy that everybody's strategy is slightly different. How you think you can be better than anybody else at the table, and they think the same about you. But the people. Right, you see the same people on a Monday night, a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, on the weekend, South Australia, Mount Gambier, Melbourne, Queensland. You always see the same people. I reckon we had about 16 people, sort of from the southwest, Mount Gambier, flowing into Geelong and Ballarat, and then there was others that I met up with that I played 20 years ago at Werribee. I've seen them up there as well. So,
and I suppose that's the beauty of things like. Especially with these local sort of tournaments, you get to meet people that you never would have actually met in real life. Like, for example, we went away with a guy called Frankie, which is a total legend. Shout out Frankie. But he's a total legend. And like, if I hadn't played poker down here, like I stopped playing for a few years and then I came back to the scene. If I never would have met Frankie.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Big shout out to you, Frankie.
Yeah. But like people like that, like so is that sort of what you like the most about poker? Is that sort of the social side of it?
Everybody. Geez, I could probably only name it on a hand about the people that I've never had a clash with anyone, but everybody's in the same ilk. We all sit down, we go, what are the poker gods going to bring us today? And we all go outside and talk about the bad beats or how we got lucky or whatever it is, but we've all got the same story and everybody's the same, but just their friendly nature.
Yeah. What about the thing you both disliked about poker? Is there anything you sort of disliked about poker?
Oh, wow.
Or is there anything that you think that sort of grinds your gears a little bit maybe, or you know, something like...
Yeah, if there's one thing that dislikes me, it's when you've got a variety, and unfortunately it's just the nature of the beast. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
There is something you can do about it, pay extra money, go to the better events, but sometimes you'll play in events where guys will just go, I'm going no look, all in, things like that, and it's very hard to apply your strategy in a sort of pure form when you're valuing your stack against others. That's probably what frustrates me, is you've got people that are only playing it because they're there, and then you've got others that really care about it, and they're everyone else in between, and it happens everywhere where you go. That's probably the frustrating thing.
See, my biggest probably grief with poker at the moment is probably, like, not that it's a bad thing sometimes, but I do think some people can indulge too much a little bit, so they have too much to drink. Now, we do know one or two people that do that actually turns them into better poker players and are better guys. But I think in general, it's not when you've got too drunk, it's when you've got too drunk and you can't function and you don't know what the betting is, you don't know even how to shuffle your cards. I think that's probably my biggest grief at the moment.
Yeah. But some of those smaller tournaments, and not bagging them out, because you need them for poker to survive, and everybody needs a start. But they're just some of the things you got to learn to accept. You mightn't agree with it at times, but you just got to learn to accept it, because that's part and parcel of being able to get 40 or 50 or 60 players into a room.
Well, and I suppose that's the biggest thing with these smaller tournaments as well, is that you're going to get your variety of, like you said, of your real people that, you know, are there for the alcohol, and they'll pay the cards because they're there. And then you get the other people that really want to improve on their game and stuff. But I think you're seeing, probably one thing that I'm seeing is a lot more people are actually going to bigger events these days.
But we still need those regular Monday to
Definitely.
Thursday night games, because that's where, for the people that want to have fun, and who knows, 5-10 years down the track, they might go, you know what, I might just serious it up a bit now.
Exactly.
But you need them, and you need it for the social interaction and going out, and you know, sometimes you might walk out going ruckin', you know, I'll rip it again, but like I said earlier, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail.
And I think with everybody started at those, like when I first started playing poker, it was actually free. So you could go to these events and it was free. And that was the beauty of it, and you had to get stamp cards and you stamped them up, and that's how the venue made money out of it. So that was, you always got to have these events, because it's like you said, it's where people start.
You do. Without them, it kills poker for 80% of the players.
Now, there is a question that I did have to ask you, and you don't know this is coming, but I did a video. I want your opinion on it. Is poker gambling, mate?
I haven't seen it. Is it gambling? I'm gonna sit on the fence. And I'm gonna say yes and no. Because unlike a horse or a dog, where we don't have any control over what they do. Right? Or the footy, we don't have any control. I'm not a coach, I'm not a player. When we sit down and play at a game, every decision about my hand and me in that hand comes from me. So, and then depending on your strategies, whether you use odds or you use percentages or whatever, you can actually apply a risk factor. And then you can go, well, I gambled at 16%, or I gambled at 84%, depending on your ratio of odds.
Because my opinion was that it is gambling, but that it's, like you said,
it's going to be gambling.
Because you're gambling money, but I think where a lot of people go wrong with poker is they think that gambling, it's pure gambling, that's all it is, where poker isn't just a game of numbers, it's a game of skill as well. So like, yes, you are technically gambling, but at the same time, if you weren't gambling the money, you would still be playing the game, wouldn't you?
Say that again?
If you weren't paying for the money, like let's just say you weren't buying in for $20, let's just say all poker was
So we
free.
had a free roll?
All poker is free, would you still be playing?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the only request I have is everybody play the free roll like they paid money.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and that's where sort of the love of the game sort of comes in, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
It's that whole strategy and challenge. Like every time you sit around, like I touched on it earlier, is you got so many factors, and quite often it's not just cards. And my card's the best cards out there.
Yeah.
After 3 cards have hit the flop, you go, "Ooh, I've got a pair.
Yeah.
I've got 2 pair. Like a rainbow board. Is there a flush draw? Is there a straight draw? Is there overs? Is there connectors?
Yeah.
Then you got to work out your position. You know, are the blind levels going to go up? Is it one of a pub night event, or is it a 5 or a 6 or a 7 hour deep stack on a Sunday? Who are you playing? Their ranges. There's so much to it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the best thing is you need to get to know your mathematics as well, because that will make you a better player.
Doesn't always work though, trust me.
It doesn't always work. But you know, like for example, you're saying like you've got cards and the 3 cards come out on the flop. You know that 34% of the time someone's going to hit the flop. So if there's only you and one other person in it, likelihood of him hitting a flop is pretty low. So then that's where the sort of strategy comes into it. So.
Yeah, and the other times, you know, you got a 2-outer.
Yeah.
4%.
So what's your biggest dream in poker, mate? Like, what is it? Playing the World Series, or because I know we've had this discussion before, and you're sort of you're not in it for the fame, if you know what I mean. Like you're not in it, you just enjoy the game.
It'd be good, but let's be realistic. If you want to try and get to that level and sustain that level, it takes a massive commitment. It takes a massive financial commitment. You can't I can't get up and in 4 weeks' time say, see you later, I'm traveling the world, and I'm going to play, you know, World Series and do all that. And like we talk about the bad beats that you see here. At any event we've played in for the last couple of, can you imagine how many bad beat stories are coming out of Vegas? Mate?
No, I definitely agree with that. I think
it'd be insane.
I think personally, one of my bucket lists is to play the World Series of Poker, the main event. But I'm a bit like you as well. It's like
it'd be an awesome experience.
Yeah.
After what we went through up at the Millions, that was the first time we went up to the Millions.
Well, see, that was my second time for the Millions, but it was your first time.
Yeah, absolutely loved it. Loved the poker.
Yeah.
The people that you met, the way poker was played.
Yeah.
In my opinion, played how it should be in its purest form, and respect your stack. And if people make raises, put them on a good hand.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time. Obviously, there's times where you've got to get some money back because you may have blinded out a few times. You've got to get something back, and you do have to make your moves. But everybody has a very similar respect level there on the table, which is really good. I mean, the other thing too was, from 9 o'clock in the morning, we were up talking poker, nearly playing poker, to 3:30 in the morning at the casino, still playing poker.
Yeah.
They were good days.
Didn't have much sleep those 5 days while there, I can tell you right now.
Good days.
But we're already planning to go up next year, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a shout out to anybody that...
And for anybody who's on that little crossover and hasn't done it, so if you can just gather some PTCs and save them up, or save some money from buy-ins, your bankroll, whatever you win in poker, shovel it back into like your Queensland fund. Do whatever you can, and if you can get 3-4 of your mates together, you know, you fly there together, you split the cost of everything, your accommodation.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap for us, wasn't it?
It's a perfect way to do it, but you got to start now. You can't start 6 weeks out. But even if you only do it once, get up there and experience it. It will change your attitude and your game and just how you approach it. And results. You will see better results.
And if there's any local people that are looking to come up, obviously myself and Nick are going up. We've got Frankie coming up with us, and Dave, who also came up with us last time. We've already had about 3 or 4 people already put their hands up to come up as well. So if you are interested in coming up for next year, we obviously don't know the dates yet, but just talk to us at one of the events, and we can probably work out something so we could get a few carloads up there. Because the more people you know up there, the better experience, I think.
How good was it the first night we got out there? You know, there were so many players from Southwest, and then in the Masters we've seen the guys from Geelong, 40
we
was
saw-
there. Good to
40
see you
was there,
again.
Yeah, it was good.
And
We saw Luke and Haley from Warrnambool and Pete Stone and Timmy Brown from Warrnambool and there was a heap of people from Warrnambool.
Yeah,
So.
and there was others that there was quite a few, and then there was others that I'd met at the Gambia event.
Yeah, definitely.
From a classic.
Yeah,
and I
you
can remember
represented
being on their tables over there and
Yeah.
seeing them up there, and sometimes you might remember a name, so they got to operate as mate. But you've got that facial connection, and you know whether you're walking past, you chipped up, you chipped down. You know how you're travelling to sitting down having a beer with them and talking. It was just.
And the venue was
brilliant.
perfect for that as well. The APL put on a really good. I will give a shout out to APL. They put on a really good event up there. So if you can get up to there, definitely worth it. And like you said, if you can get 3 or 4 of your mates or hit us up and we can organise something for you, just because splitting rooms and stuff like that makes it so much cheaper. I think we only spent like maybe $500 to get up there and stay there. It was cheaper than anything. You know, it was like for
Stupidly cheap.
5 or 6 nights. So like you can't go wrong there. So but definitely worth doing it, guys, and definitely worth pursuing poker a little bit more. There's definitely more events around this area. If you are listening in Victoria at all, there's definitely some good events over this side of Victoria.
And since we've come out of COVID, I think there has been a change in regards to those the guarantees. The deep stack events. There's the satellites. There's more of them.
A lot more independent places as well. Like I said,
we're up and running. The Gambia guys, absolutely. If you can get a chance to go to one of their events, do that. That will give you a little taste of what a top notch. And it's in our backyard, and you don't have to travel, 2,500 k's to get there. So. Do that.
Definitely worth with Southern Poker Tour over in South Australia as well. If you are over, like we're lucky enough to be over close to the border, so we can get over there. But they do run a really good show as well. And I know they've got an event coming up at the end of October, I think it is, right in Adelaide. So they do run a good show as well. But even just your local tournaments, like there's some ones in Ballarat, obviously. As well, and there's
best of the best in the States from the APL,
and can't forget about APL as well. They're starting to come to the party a little bit more with these deeper stack events, and you don't actually have to play APL on the weekdays. You can actually just go and buy into some of these events.
But some of the better events that the APL have had this year, I think, have been the ones where they've had tickets.
Yeah, definitely.
Because a lot of people have gone there to get tickets, and I mean, you go and get a $1,500. I managed to get one at Croydon, like a $1,500 ticket, nearly $1,000 in cash, and from all the tables that I played on, pretty much 95% of the people, set their goal to try and get to that final table and get that prize. So it was it was good, and when you sit down in the first 20 minutes. As to what the feel is like on the table, and quite often those loose aggressive ones, they're either out or they'll chip up high and then they're out.
Yeah, we do know players like that, don't we? We know players that blow up their stacks every so often. But definitely get to some of these events, guys, because they're definitely worth going, I reckon. So, and like Nick said, make sure you're always checking your game, checking and improving on your game, and just you can pick up. Apart other people's games and take what you want from them. Like we've got a local player here, I won't mention name obviously, but he's a very aggressive player, and I've picked a little bit from his game as well. And then we've got other players that sort of play the position very well. So I'm very similar to you, Nick. I learn a lot about my game in Queensland, even though I was a card deadest I've ever been.
And then when if you get to a point where you think I'm doing pretty good, go and start watching some YouTube videos of games, or follow the Facebook pages.
Definitely.
And watch quite a few hands, and even though you can see the two hands, start thinking, righto, he's got this, he's probably going to bet 1/3 pot, half pot, and just take how you'd play the hand compared to the pros. Sometimes you're actually on the money. You go, I reckon he's going to bet, $250,000, and he might bet 220. You think, right, I'm not too bad. And then other times you can be way off. But that's you're comparing yourself to the best of the best.
Yeah, but you got it.
But they're the best of the best.
Yeah, and there's a lot of apps out there now as well, isn't there, that you can do simulations I've got one on my phone that it's called Poker Tournament Coach, and you can do simulations, and they go through actual hands that have played, the pros have played, and they'll give you a rating of how you played that hand compared to how it should be played. And it doesn't always mean that that's your style of game, but it just gives you a bit of a look at how you play your game, and it's really quite handy to have those sort of things. Well, anyway, mate, thank you very much for coming along.
No dramas.
I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the guys to sort of sign off? Is there one last tip that you've got that
don't tilt, be patient, because quite often when you go card dead and you card dead and you go card dead, and you'll wake up with that sort of 3/4 good hand, and you go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to have a bit of a serious go here. You'll lose a lot of the time, and 2 hands later you'll wake up with pocket aces or pocket kings. So always be patient. And the other thing is, sometimes you've got a monster. There's no don't ever be embarrassed to fold a monster if you know you're behind.
Yeah, definitely.
I've folded aces, I've folded kings because I know I'm behind, as hard as it is, because you don't get them very often.
Yeah.
You got to be disciplined and fold them. If not, you're just tearing up half your stack like that because you're not disciplined enough.
One thing I will say is never fold pocket aces pre-flop though. I know people that have done that, and that's probably the most statistically bad thing you can possibly do. King sometimes is the right play, rarely, but it is sometimes the right play to fold before flop, but aces never fold pre-flop. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel. We do have plenty of more videos on our channel. We do have more poker vlogs. We also have more poker discussion videos. This has been our first interview video, but we do have a few more coming as well. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can see some of our videos up here on the screen. We've also got a playlist up there. And yeah, thank you very much, and can't wait to talk to you again.